Hello, brothers and sisters. Again, it's a pleasure to be here and to be speaking to you in these troubling times, in these crises. I'm hope and I thank God that you're all okay so far. We regret and we sympathize with those who have lost their loved ones. We pray for them. We send our sincere condolences and our regrets and our solidarity to you and ask you to stay strong and to continue to keep the faith. These are some very trying times indeed, some very sad times, unprecedentedly tough times for all of us, especially communities like ours that do not get our fair share. We feel the brunt of it. We get no help from our elected officials. We get no help from our representatives. We get no masks. We get no sanitizers. We get no PPE, that is a personal protection equipment, and yet we have so many nurses. Some of the best nurses have come from the Caribbean. They came here on special visas. Doctors. My brother's a doctor. Many of our people that studied with me have become doctors and dentists. And unfortunately, we're all in this together, in the sad state of affairs. And we asked for the help of God, the Almighty, and for judicial and divine intervention to help us through these terrible times. I hope that we will prevail. I hope that every one of us survives this and lives to tell our grandchildren and others how to avoid these types of crises, and that measures are put in place to avoid a repetition of this kind of global pandemic, a pandemic that has changed the world, a pandemic that has inflicted wounds and opened up pain and suffering and grieving and unexpected death. People have died who we didn't get to say goodbye to. People have suffered. People have been interred where we did not where we did not even get to say goodbye or even see or pay respects to the dead. That has been most sad. We have had bodies put in more makeshift morgues and put in ice boxes and truck refrigerators in the most inhumane and sad way. Perhaps that is a reflection of how our morality has decayed and declined. There's too much sin in the world. There's too much exploitation, too much victimization. This is a stark and timely reminder that we are all humans. We are all equal. The injustices we have done to others have come back to haunt society, to destroy us, to teach us a lesson that we ought to be treat our fellow human beings in a much better and caring way. We've been lacking in humanity. There are many people who have written on this to show that this is the equalizer. And I say this with no pride or with no mirth, except to say that we sow what we reap. And the injustices of locking up people and bringing fake indictments and bogus charges eventually come back to haunt us. Things where we deprive people who are justly entitled, just like everybody else. Systems where we marginalize others and treat them as second-class citizens. This is a stark reminder that we're all one, that we live in one earth, in one space. We share the world. We must leave it a better place than how we found it. That is the lesson of this, the broader lesson that we are taught, and the lesson of having humanity and compassion to all, so that we can be a better and fairer society. The emperors and the kings can no longer occupy their distasteful place in history and over other people. That, to many people, is the final lesson we will learn from all of this. Now, when I asked you to stay safe, I wanted to just give you a few quick reminders. Going to the supermarkets and stuff like that, I have seen a lot of our people, a lot of our constituents, a lot of our neighbors and people who live in this community work as cashiers and as supermarket workers without a mask. I blame the supermarket, these rich supermarket owners who exploit these people. Not only are they not labor compliant in that they're allowed to form unions, as the United Food and Commercial Worker Unions will tell you, places like Key Food and Lefferts, and they have two of them, Key Foods, and they have another one on Liberty Avenue and some other supermarkets. I'm not saying all of them have breached this, but many of them have not given their staff the resources, that is the PPE, the simple masks that can protect them, and the sanitizers. It's a small sum of money. It really is most inhumane and illegal for them to have these people on the front lines cashing in their millions whilst they put their lives on the line, and they don't even give them or provide them with a mask and sanitizers. And that is abhorrent. That is against the law. It's immoral, and it must stop. I call upon all supermarket workers and owners, especially the owners, to make sure that the workers are outfitted with the proper safety equipment. It is wrong to have them working at this time, but since they perform an essential service and they help the community to get their groceries, which we desperately need, then at least you should outfit them with the right and proper equipment so that they can avoid getting contaminated. That is at least the basic things you can do, and pay them their overtime and $15 minimum wages to ensure that these supermarket workers and cashiers have a life and can take care of their families. It's terrible what's going on in the supermarkets. Also, I wanted to pass on information that if you buy groceries in the supermarkets, you should at least store them in your garage or out of the house for at least 24 hours for the virus to subside, for the virus to die off, then bring it immediately into your house. Of course, there are perishable items like orange juice and milk and other things that you can wash under your sink, wash it off from the supermarket, and the fruits and vegetables. Can wait 24 hours. They won't spoil overnight like that. But at least the milk and orange juice and things that you buy, wash it under your outside pipes and put them in your garages or out of the usual household for 24 hours. And then you can put them into your freezers and to avoid it bringing viruses into the house, because you'll be terribly shocked. Oh, how did I get the virus? And I quarantined myself for 2 to 3 weeks. There are many ways this virus creeps in and on you. It's airborne. It can get through cracks and crevices, and therefore through plastic, through porous bags and things like that. And that is the risk. And we need to take every precaution because it is such a vicious and dangerous thing that it's a real threat. So that's one of the things I wanted to pass on to you. One of the ideas, one of what I learned that you should try to avoid having those situations where you will get problems with your supermarket orange juice and milk contaminating and bringing the virus into your homes. That's one of the ways that you should implement being safe and taking the necessary precautions. Of course, we have to continue to stay 6 feet away from each other, try not to get too close. One of the problems we find here is that our communities, and people have said this, and it's no joke, although if you tell a Caribbean person or a Guyanese, don't go outside, he or she will go outside just to see who's outside. Let me repeat that. If you tell a Guyanese or a Caribbean person, don't go outside, he or she will go outside just to see who's outside. And terribly, people have been doing that. You don't need to go embarking on Liberty Avenue or Atlantic Avenue for now. Forget about all these things. They're going to be there when you come out. You need to be there so that you can see you can enjoy your life and you can live your life. Because many people are going out just to be there. There was one gentleman videotaping the whole of Liberty Avenue and said, "Oh, you know what? It's closed." Well, brother, what do you expect it to be? People don't want to die. They have closed their homes and their businesses and what have you and gone home for safety. It's a necessary precaution. So don't be spreading these kinds of, oh, how is Liberty Avenue closed? We have a lot of this here. We have a lot of that there. The sky is falling or whatever it is. Just stay home. You don't need to tell people and videotape for an entire hour and put yourself at risk and let other people go outside and find these problems. You don't need to be doing that. That would only create more mayhem. So just quietly go home and, do what you got to do and stay home, all of you, because it doesn't make sense going out there and trying to be a hero or trying to be a Superman or trying to show, you know what, I'm so strong, this virus can't. Better than you have fallen from this virus. So just be careful. Now, we have also been getting a lot of calls, as much as we get calls about the coronavirus and there's many help going on, that we should also, in the interim, if you're at home, you can fill out the census online, by telephone, or through the mail. If you're scared of the mail and there's virus in the mail that you picked up, which shouldn't last on paper beyond 2 days, from my understanding, you can fill out the forms by filling them out in writing, or secondly, you can call the hotline number, the 844 number for the census. Go to census.gov, get that number. I'll try and provide it for you in my next recording. And thirdly, you can also go online at census.gov, which is probably the easiest way. It takes 2 to 3 minutes, and fill out the forms and just click send. It will not only fill out the form for you, but it'll fill out the form for your entire family. And that way, it will be, you will have done that and you finish. You don't have to get all these mails coming back to you, people coming knocking at your door, people coming and telling you, oh, you've got to fill the census forms later, and basically harassing you during the summertime when you'll be glad to have those few weeks or whatever is going to be left after this virus, God willing, that we can enjoy that without being unnecessarily disturbed by government bureaucracy. And I also wanted to call on all our city, state, and federal leaders to do more. We have not had any help in this community. And I know everyone, some are sick and some really can't help, but I've noticed a very stark situation in our community where we don't even hear from our elected officials. I've not, apart from Congressman Meeks, who holds this regular town hall meetings, which has been very informative. We have not seen the city council or state senate. Well, Senator Sanders has been keeping the people abreast also, but the city council and the assembly have been missing in action. I don't know what's going on. I've not heard them reportedly sick, but there is a lack of leadership and there's a lack of communication to constituents. I understand that we have not gotten, many have complained. We have had to personally provide resources and pay out of our own pockets, simple things like masks and sanitizers and things like these and foodstuffs to help the poorer people. And our community is very marginalized. It consists of working class families. They're not very rich Wall Street people living in Richmond Hill, Ozone Park, Briarwood, and Queens Village, but ordinary folks who need help, especially this time, who have lost their jobs, who do the menial work, who work 3 and 4 jobs a day, whose American dream is very difficult to achieve compared to the ordinary American or the usual person out there, and who deserves better. And we ought to give them better. The system ought to be more friendly to them. The system ought to cater for them. The system needs to provide for them in both medical and economic ways. But we have not had much guidance in helping people or taking their calls in our assembly and state senate offices to help them, walk them through, or to help them, guide them to get unemployment insurance and to get other assistance that they so desperately need in these times. People have turned their backs on us. People who are supposed to be leaders who come here and collect campaign contributions and get our votes have been missing in action. And I call upon you to get out there and not to face the tragedy or to face the consequences or to breach any of the quarantine laws, but at least to show some interest in terms of emailing us, in terms of doing what I'm doing here, keeping people abreast, and also to ensuring, most of all, that resources are diverted to us, given to us, our fair share of resources, which have been historically deprived of from the federal, state, and city government. This is a very rich country. It has a lot of resources. We are not asking for resources to be sent to India or Guyana or China or Bangladesh or Pakistan or wherever. We're just asking it to be sent here in America. This is America. We're part of America. We're citizens. We are proud citizens and patriotic. Our children fight and die for America. We pay taxes. We have jobs and try to live. We are the waiters and janitors and street cleaners and the household workers that help you to make your millions whilst life goes on. So at least charity begins at home. You should try to remember this community and the products and proud workers, the menial tasks that we have done. And I speak on their behalf that you have neglected them and you've forgotten them. And you need to help out these communities, these domestic workers, these people who have had to go to their homes and not earn a living, the tenants, the MTA workers, the bus drivers, the taxi drivers who've been committing suicide, who have always been having it hard, the people who are losing their homes by foreclosures, the people who are in prison. These people, we need to get solutions to them. There are many people in prison right now who are suffering a death sentence. They were sentenced to like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, some of them for nonviolent crimes, and they are serving their sentences. But how can you inflict what is now amounting to cruel and unusual punishment? The Constitution of our great country outlaws cruel and unusual punishment. It's illegal. It's wrong. Not only immoral, but it's also against the Constitution that is the biggest land that governs America. And yet we have people suffering death where the staff has these the coronavirus, the pandemic victims, and they're passing it on to prisoners and people who are being made to die for minor crimes, petty offenses, bogus charges, lots of them, probably people who just pled guilty to get the weight off their back because they didn't afford a lawyer, and people who are just put in there to help the statistics of law enforcement, police, and prosecutors to get promoted to these high jobs in Washington and this Albany and wherever. These are people who prey on others. And so you have a system that is festering on poor people and marginalizing people of color to an unfair degree, and then allowing them to die in prison because they can't get the right resources or because they're kept in a hotbed of disease and such problems. That's something wrong. These people weren't sentenced to, these prisoners weren't sentenced to death. They were not given a death sentence, but they're enduring a death sentence. So I call upon the governor, I call upon others. And by no way am I advocating that we should let all the violent criminals loose on the streets. That's rubbish. No, I was never saying that. I was merely saying that we need to take a look at those who are sick in prison and how we stem the tide there, what alternatives can be found towards making sure that they serve their sentences or that they are commuted in a way that they don't die in prison or that they don't suffer cruel and unusual punishment, and that we remember that these are human beings, many of whom are innocent, many of whom were victims of the biased justice and inept justice system that we have, that statistics have shown and books have been written on that show that it's a new Jim Crow. Many books have been written showing that the majority of people, 1 in 10, I forget the statistics now, but 1 in 6 people of color will go to prison, many of them innocent people. So let's revisit this issue also. I was getting a lot of calls from families who are concerned, and they also ought to be addressed in this entire paradigm of despair and urgent help that has to be done also. So that's one of the issues I wanted to talk about and advocate for across the board. There are many people who have not been advocated for and who need advocacy. I've also heard a lot of calls from the Caribbean and from Guyanese Americans living here. We've had an issue with the elections. It's 5 weeks now in Guyana, and there's been no elections. There has been no declaration of the president. There have been no institutionalization of the person who's won the elections. These problems continue, and we have had 5 weeks now, and up to today, the Secretary of State, who is the most important man in this, is the President Trump's right-hand individual in foreign affairs, and he has been paying very keen attention. He has threatened economic and political sanctions against those who have held democracy to ransom. There's a cabal of thugs in Guyana, Mingo, Lowenfield, and a few others on that GCOM, that have held back democracy in Guyana for 5 weeks. And imagine 5 people holding back an entire country's future, a future that is made bright and promising by the promise of oil, the discovery of oil that can help a poor third world country like Guyana to become and to earn its rightful place in history and in the world economy. And we are just like, destroying our own selves there, because I'm a proud American Guyanese who enjoys dual citizenship. And I must speak on behalf of this, because there's whatever happens in Guyana also affects people here, because they talk about it just as much as they talk as the coronavirus. And now the coronavirus is there, they look to us for guidance. And we have been trying to make sure that whosoever was won the election, whether it be Granger or whether it be Irfan Ali, be sworn in, but make sure you complete the count. Region 4 count is still incomplete after 5 weeks. That is a dubious record that we ought not to have. That is a putrid record that Guyana is now saddled with. The longest country to hold democracy to ransom, or the longest illegal regime that was already voted out by a no confidence vote, perpetuating itself in power after a credible election was held for 5 weeks. That is not something that we need to have. That is not something we need to be proud of. That is something we should be ashamed about. And those in Guyana who are doing that ought to do better than that, ought to just let the people's will prevail and let democracy rule. Go back and form a proper opposition. Look at what whosoever wins is doing, and you can win the next election in 4 or 5 years' time. That's not a long time. Cheddi Jagan was out of office for 28 years. The father of the Guyanese nation was cheated and held out of office by both the imperialists and by people. Read the history books, so you will see that. It's indelibly recorded in history. Let me repeat that. The father of the Guyanese nation, the greatest Guyanese that helped Guyana become a republic and an independent country, Dr. Cheddi Barrett Jagan, was held out of office and was kept out of office by the forces externally and internally for 28 years. The elections were rigged, and yet he became president after 28 inglorious years in the opposition. And being marginalized and victimized, he emerged victorious, to be a lesson to all, to be a beacon to the hope, and to be a champion of democracy. And that is why Cheddi Jagan will always live and live in history as one of the greatest freedom fighters of all time. For 28 years, he never gave up. These hoodlums and thugs are considering just a few days compared to what Cheddi and Mandela endured as the end of the world. It's not. If they're out of office, they have to compete again as opposition and try to get back in. That is how democracy is run. And in this global world where the whole world is interconnected, you just can't pillage and pilfer an election and expect not to be noticed. In the Idi Amin times and in various other dictatorships, things were allowed to happen because the internet and the world was not that savvy. Now it is very savvy. The world is interconnected. The rigging in Guyana is well known across the United Nations, across the England, UK, Canada, America, Germany, France, Australia, call it, it's known. And United Nations, the CARICOM countries, and the OAS, the Organization of American States, everyone knows what's going on in Guyana. It is not a secret. It is not a secret anymore. Where in previous years, elections used to be a foregone conclusion that it would be rigged, that it would be stolen as a matter of course, and that people don't know anything with that. That is why there's so many other Guyanese, the second largest in New York, because Guyanese left as refugees, they left their countries, they left for a better life, and they were fed up, and they had enough problems there and enough exploitation and assassinations and brutalization. They all left and came to America and made Little Guyana in Richmond Hill the most concentrated area of Guyanese in Richmond Hill. That is called Little Guyana or Little India or Little Trinidad. This is where people came and made a better life. And yet, because their heart is in Guyana and Trinidad and wherever, and because they're concerned and because their relatives are there, they want to see that democracy is upheld. And democracy resides in the hearts of all these expatriates and patriots of Guyana, and that is understandable. Their navel string is buried in these countries, and I understand and myself that we should at least look out for those who have to go through that pandemic and the pandemic of a stolen government, which is wrong. So we have had these situations where we continue to see that democracy is being held to ransom. Democracy is still being hightailed, and democracy is still being curtailed, and democracy is still being kept prisoner in Guyana. And that is wrong, manifestly wrong. But there's light at the end of a tunnel. Mike Pompeo today, the Secretary of State for the Trump administration, to his credit, has reiterated that he wants to see these elections brought to a logical conclusion. He wants to see the votes counted, as all of us want to. And be it who has won the election, whether it's Tom, Dick, or Harry, whether it's Granger or Irfan, then that person has to be sworn in. That person will have 4 years. And you can vote them out again if they have been endorsing policies where there are cabals and selected people stealing the commanding heights of the economy and making themselves rich and having these villages and homes that are big like, a half of Liberty Avenue. If they continue to steal like that, and then that's what they use with the taxpayers' money, then vote them out, send them packing. If they're going to be like people that have been criticized for being dictators and for doing things and given resources and Gao situation there, closing down the estates and people's names being called in multi-million frauds on both sides. On both sides, let's get that flat clear. On both the PPP sides and the PNC sides, we have had people that come up with credible evidence that millions and billions were stolen. So that need to go to the Guyanese people. You need to stop. You stop having that kind of greed. You don't need to do those things to the Guyanese people. They've suffered enough, and you need to lift them from poverty. You need to ensure that they get their proper rights in Guyana. That's where their democratic rights are. Those resources of the oil belong to the people, not to any chosen people who think that they are the privileged ones. No, that's not democracy. It must go to the working class, the sugar workers who don't have jobs, the bauxite workers who have lost the bauxite industry, the farmers, the people who live below the poverty line in Guyana. These are the people who need to earn and to be given the resources and the life that was promised to them or that is owed to them by virtue of being Guyanese citizens and Guyanese patriots. That is their God-given right. Let's make no mistake about that. It does not belong to anyone. But coming back to showing them that why they're fighting of these elections and trying every crazy trick and deceit by Mingo and by the judges and by these lawyers filing frivolous actions, that is so, if it wasn't clumsy and so clownish, but they're dead serious. It's tragic that that they're holding Guyanese to ransom like this and exploiting democracy. Take a page from Chetty Jagan. 28 years in the wilderness. He became president by a landslide, and then he only ruled for a few years before he died because we had actually sucked the blood of Chetty. We had sucked the substance from him in those 28 years as a dictatorship. We kept a man who could have united Guyana and lead us to the promised land for 28 inglorious years. Those were the times when you needed someone who could have united Guyana, united the 6 races there, was the president as of right, historically, politically, and otherwise, who fought the British imperialists, withstood the CIA intervention in Guyana that took them out of power, lived to show them that they were wrong and had them acknowledge they were wrong. Read Arthur Slasher's book, you will see, or The Western Trial. Educate yourself on these issues. And came back as president of the Republic of Guyana. And now all of that is going down the drain. And people have been complaining of those who succeeded Chetty in both sides of the aisle and both parties never lived up to what the Chetty taught Guyanese. And that's a shame. There's never been any meaningful successor or anyone worthy to wear Chetty Jagan's shoes in Guyana, and that has been a tragedy. So Guyanese need to learn from the founder of Guyana, learn the charity, learn the economic plans that he had, learn the basic concepts that he said. And one of those concepts is that Chetty always told us that you can't drive a Mercedes Benz or a Cadillac and you have a donkey cart economy. Let me repeat that. You cannot enjoy a Cadillac lifestyle with a donkey cart economy. And it's very clear what he's saying. You can't put your hands where you can reach. Guyana, now that you have the oil, you certainly can reach as high as Dubai did or does. You can see Dubai. Go to YouTube and see what kind of lifestyle and what kind of development is going on there. That was built on oil. And you could go to Nigeria and see what happens when people steal the oil or give it away to the expatriates and the multi-million dollar corporations who will come to Guyana and give you 2%. And then you educate yourself. Well, what are we doing as a sovereign country, an independent country, in terms of giving away resources? Hold them accountable. Hold them at arm's length. Do trade with them in a fair way. Don't sell yourself short for a few dollars or for filthy lucre, and then you say, okay, you take bribes and you give them the commanding heights of the economy, you give them the oil fields and you take 2%. That is treason. That is the kind of problem that we're having right now in Guyana. That is where people like that should really be made answerable to the fullest extent of the law. Now, this is what I'm also going to close off today and let you know how I feel about what's going on with these riggers in Guyana. There are people like Claremont Mingo and Lowenfield and the three other people on the GCOM. Now, GCOM is an independent body, so to speak, but GCOM cannot be the Wild West. GCOM cannot be a place or an institution of people or a set of people that is doing that. So my situation there is that how can GCOM allow to perpetuate a fraud and a dictatorship on the Guyanese people headed by Claudette Singh in such a perverse and perverted manner, in such an evil manner? 5 weeks, like I said, that is probably a world record of dubious proportions that we don't need to have right now. How can this be allowed to happen? You have got to remove, that is why you have a director of public prosecutions who is a sole controller of criminal indictments in Guyana. And right now, with Mingo suddenly switching the votes and stealing the votes or concealing the votes or not doing what he's supposed to do in the public discharge of his duties. And I will tell you as a former prosecutor, police legal advisor, and magistrate in Guyana, we have brought charges like that where village councils were concerned because it never rose to the level that we had that kind of evidence. There was no doubt that there were credible evidence against the Burnham's regime that he did that similarly in Guyana, as the history books have confirmed. But this is a case where it was all captured on video, all captured in the process, and all prolonged. There is a situation where you need to act and act fast now. The Director of Public Prosecutions is not asleep. We saw when she re-indicted a murder accused who went down there, Marcus Bisram. So it's not like she's gone on some vacation or there's no one there that's not doing anything. All of these things happened before. And Mingo and Lowenfield and this set of tyrants, there's enough there to charge them for treason or for breach of their public duties or for grand larceny and theft or for something along those lines, breach of official duties and obstruction of justice. Other peoples have had to face charges like that on bogus terms when people make up crimes and pin it on them to get rid of them. We will talk about that in another forum on another day. But right now we're focusing on what is happening in Guyana. There's genuine proof of pilfering. There's genuine proof of illegalities. There's genuine and insurmountable proof, compelling evidence. As a former prosecutor in Guyana who prosecuted the most violent of crimes, the worst cases, I was sent to do them. I was 23 years old. I was the youngest lawyer who came out of law school in the Commonwealth and still have that record. 22 years old, I was able to go and fight those cases and became a magistrate in 25, the youngest and fastest appointment by anyone because of the stellar career that I launched against those violent criminals and crooks. Many of them are multi-million-dollar frauds. 7.6 conspiracy in those days was worth billions. Came up against the best lawyers in Guyana at that time. Stanley Hardial, Dudnat Singh, Rex McKay, Bernard DeSantis. All of them together, Dudnat Singh, I think I mentioned him. Yes, all of these great guns. And was able to hold my own. So Lionel Laku, all of them. So what I'm saying is that a young person imbued with confidence and wanting to do law and order and justice can hold his own in any forum, whether it's a courtroom or the school or the public opinion, can ensure that justice is done. And that is why the young people who are guarding those ballot boxes in Guyana, my heart goes out to them. I say thank you. I say I salute you. I pay homage to you. And these are people from all the 6 races of Guyana, the 6 races that show we are one people, one nation, one destiny. The 6 races have come together and have held a vigil. They call them the guardians of democracy, and they truly are the guardians of democracy. They are the most inspiring thing that has come out of all of this, that the young people of Guyana, the next generation, will not sit back and allow Guyana to be converted into a racist town or pillaged by any race or any class of people. They want each other to be embraced by their country, and rightly so. They are proud Guyanese. They are the carriers of the Guyanese golden arrowhead tomorrow. They are the carriers of the flame that they will proudly move into a new dawn and take it to a new beginning, a new economic phase, an epic of endemic proportions, good or bad. And that is why it comes to them. It depends on them. A lot is riding on this, that Guyana can get rid of its problems, Guyana can move into a new day, and Guyana can then enjoy the American dream, or in Guyanese terms, that we can be self-sufficient, we can take a proper standing in the world, and we can be a voice to be reckoned with, and a power, economically and otherwise, to be reckoned with. Perhaps we'll be lending money to countries like the United States and the United Kingdom, reverse what has happened over the years. Or perhaps we'll be able to help the International Monetary Fund with a sound global, gross domestic product. That's not impossible. That's where we should aim. That's what we should aim for. At least to be self-sufficient, to be a proud people, to be a proud nation, to walk with our heads held high, not to be dependent on the crumbs of people like the British gave us. Remember, we were slaves and indentured servants of our parents. We need to move beyond that. Never forget where you came from. We endured bitter struggle, paddungs, marginalization, and exploitation. A new dawn is waiting for Guyana, but we are not allowing it to become our mornings. We are living in the twilight zone. We are living in darkness. We are living in dictatorship. We are living in a lack of democracy. We are fighting each other. And we are allowing our greed, or the greed of others who are manipulating us, to hold Guyana to ransom. I call upon all of you to stop this. Now we have to wait on observers to come back to tell us, oh, 1 is 1 equal 2, 2 plus 3 equal 3 votes, 4 votes, 5 votes. It's a shame. Ridiculous that an independent country, a sovereign country, with billions of oil in its future and its potential, bauxite, oil, gold, everything we have there, manganese, that we are dependent on other people. Don't you think they'll want to control us? They'll want to at least have some influence there, their way. They wouldn't want to say, well, give us 2%, we're going to take 98% of your oil. You know, every time you get a handout, there's something attached to it. Trust me, I've been living in America for a long time now, for decades, and I know. I've been able to see how you can be stigmatized, marginalized. You can even be sent to prison by bogus charges. It's not an easy road. As soon as you become a viable person here with a voice, you become a target. They would look and try to put you away the best way they can because you have a voice. You have some intelligence, you have some education, and you'll be a spoke in someone else's wheel. You'll be exposing the corruption and the insiderism. You will not be welcomed. You may be, people may talk to you nice in front of your face, and behind you looking to put that knife through you, or to send an arrow or a bullet through your chest from behind. It always comes from behind in America. You don't even know where it's coming from. It's much more sophisticated, the assassinations. In Guyana, a man will come and shout at you with some, 2x4, and you know exactly what it's probably is coming from. It's not sophisticated. It's a hit anyway, and most likely you will survive that. Not in America, not in these developed countries. They'll take your wealth and they plunge their knives in you. You don't even know where it's coming from. Trust me, I've been there. I know what I'm talking about. That will be the discussion for another day. But right now, our options in Guyana, Timran, that you're asking about, is to put the pressure on Guyanese. Put the pressure on people home, those who have to make this election. GCOM has the final authority. Get the work done, GCOM. Claudette saying you need to have control over your cabal, your GCOM masquerade and clowns that you have there. You need to get a grip on things and said, we will finish this count in 48 hours, period. We are not going to listen. Let's lock the door, have all the observers in, bring everybody in, let's count this vote. Don't let's get distracted. Don't let's go to frivolous appeals to the CCJ. Don't let's go wasting the judge's time again, like we did, to tell us that 33 is a majority of 65. Let's stop wasting taxpayers' money. Put the money to fight the virus. And you will not get recognition to fight the virus, and you will not get recognition to fight Venezuela's threat if you continue to live in this darkness of democracy. Don't you understand Mingo and Longfield and the guys, the three guys on GCOM, that the APNU representatives, and even the president there, the interim caretaker, de facto president, that you're an embarrassment to Guyanese. You're an embarrassment to your own people. Go back and fight another day. Let the votes be counted. Install whosoever has won the elections. Let democracy prevail. Form the opposition. Get back to parliament legitimately. Get rid of the clown shows and the people who are talking rubbish about stuff in ballot boxes being stuffed, and who are really writing this thing into the other dimensions that don't exist, creating facts, fake news as we go along. And President Trump talked about fake news. This is fake news about stuffed ballot boxes, and this person did this, when we know exactly the crook and the culprit in all of this, the person who committed treason on the Guyanese people, the person who raped democracy in Guyana, are the vibrant Claremont Mingos and the Lowenfields. These are the people. And the G3 commissioners and Claudette Singh, who by our acts of omission or commission has sanctioned GCOM to be the laughing stock of the world, the most inept body that is supposed to be constitutionally independent, but one which has been reduced into a pack of clowns and idiots. That's not my words. Those are the words of the constituents here in Richmond Hill and Ozone Park and Little Guyana, where you get your barrels from, where you get help from, who called Washington on your behalf, who called the president, who write the Congress people, who talk to Congressman Meeks and Clark and Baldeo and Mike Pompeo, where we have been sending the messages there, not because we're spiting anyone or we have a hatred for anyone. If Granger was in this position, we would do that for him too. If the election was being stolen from Granger, we would have done the same. or we will do the same if that happens. But that is not the situation here. It's a situation where Irfan Ali has won, and I hold no brief for anyone. He has won the election from all indications and from the clear circumstantial and direct evidence that has emerged, and the creation of the SOBs being dumped, and Mingo coming up with a spreadsheet where the figures. I mean, how foolish you think we are that you would bring votes that are larger than the number of constituents in a district to rig an election. Mangofeld's plan fell flat on his face because he had to rig so high it became mathematically impossible. And that is where the whole thing was exposed. He couldn't do what was being done before, where, in previous times you had ballot boxes being found in cane fields, and it wasn't of the nature and proportions of an epic fraud as it is now. The fraud is too scandalous. It's too big. It's too obvious. It's too transparent. It can be rehabilitated. It's like the virus. It has taken on a life of its own, a proportion of endemic and epic proportions. It can be held back. We need to conquer it. We need to solve it. So what Mingo did, and others there, under the directions going up right up to his party's leadership, who have become like hypocrites saying one thing and changing their mouth, is that he gave the PNC more votes, APNU more votes, than you had voters in a particular district. So let's say District A had 50 votes. Mingo came up with a spreadsheet that said, oh, you know what? They got 200 votes. There's no overseas votes, and there's no dead people voting as obtained previous in Guyana's history. This is just solid rock votes in Guyana. So it can be clarified. So Mingo was caught in a situation where the math, he couldn't overcome the math. The math defeated him in the end. He had too high a mountain to climb. He had to perform the impossible. He had to be like 10 Houdinis in one. Look at Mingo. Mingo couldn't achieve that. Nobody could. But yet, Mingo, to his discredit, against all odds, against all conscience, against all mathematics, or math, as you say in America, did his evil best, and it fell short. So Mingo, time to pack up and leave. And I don't think we should get rid of him now, because that's going to create another impasse and another hole there that might end up in court. Have him sit down there with the foreign observers, do the count, and make sure it comes to the end. And I'm sure my friend Gary Singh, Tim Ra, Charan Singh, and Muniram Mambodu, and Pratama, all these other great people who are concerned about this, what's going on in Guyana, will agree with me. Finish the vote and move on. Launch a good opposition. Criticize them. If they start stealing and build these fancy houses and have these duty-free concessions and become little monarchs and so forth, you will see. You will see them coming out in size. They're bursting at their seams. Check them out. You will see them. Or living in homes that you can't really speak from one end to the other end. Then you know that they're stealing from the national treasury. And therefore, you'll be able to bring a case to the Guyanese people that crooks replace crooks. Thieves are now with bigger thieves. And this has been the story of Guyana, apart from Chedi Jagan. Coming right down. And this is what the people have been saying, because the statistics don't lie, and people know what's been going on with the others. And especially now that we have this cabal of thieves with Mingo, it has got to stop. It has got to stop now, and it's got to be put to an end. And now half Kari can be put in there, all the international observers, the Carter Center, OES, everyone get in there and complete the process if you can within a day. Start with Region 4. Region 4 will determine if you have lost. Forget this spreadsheet, Mingo. The math there is horrible, man. You were a poor math student, and whatever it is you did, you couldn't do it, brother. You tried. Back off now. You know, in many other countries, you would have had a 2 by 4. But you know, Guyanese have always been good people. We have always been quiet, peaceful people. But when you steal an election from an entire population, it becomes the worst act you could ever do. 780,000 people, 750,000 people, and that's happening in Guyana. It's I-pass. As Guyanese would say, it's Ras-pass. Ras-pass, that's a Guyanese term. Ras-pass is when you take your eyes and pass people and you get a 2 by 4 coming to you. They call it a Jambi lash. I'm born and grew in Guyana, so I know. You mess around people too much, you've got a Jambi lash coming to you. You dig people's eye out, you're gonna get a 2 by 4 up, coming to you. And this is how you demand and command respect there. And I dare say that Mingo would have had that coming to him, and these guys the way they have done it, because whenever they're cornered, they end up doing something else. They're creating these shenanigans as they go along at all costs. That is to rig and cheat at all costs, and that's a terrible thing. That is unconstitutional. It's immoral. It's illegal, and it must be brought to an end. So I'm asking that people have been asking me, what do we do now? Count the votes, bring it to an end. The coronavirus is circling. It's gaining proportions in Guyana. You don't want this vulgar orange lady to come out and declare a state of emergency or something of that nature and try to lock down everything and then destroy the evidence, or to remove people, make it illegal for the people, the guardians of democracy, to stop guarding the ballot boxes, the container. You got to move before that time. Time is of the essence in this. Because I've seen her public displays and I've heard what she has said. I don't know who this woman is, but I'd love to meet her, to ask her what gives you the authority for you, a Guyanese like other Guyanese, to think that you can control them or deprive them or better than them, who they will string buried right next to yours. Who the hell do you think you are? That's what she needs to be asked. She's Guyanese and telling people you got to get a party card to get a job. And secondly, she is doing all of this stuff here with the other cabal people, the illegal acts of suppressing human rights. This is human rights violations. This is what cases of people take to the International Court of Justice for a violation of human rights. This is where people are shot before firing squads in other countries, or they are at least made to pay for these kinds of treasonous acts. These are crimes against humanity, treason against the country, and crimes against humanity. And this has got to stop, Gary. This is the sort of thing I'm not advocating violence. I'm not advocating nothing, but they be treated to the fullest extent of the law. That is what has to be done, and the votes have to be counted. And the shenanigans have been going on for 5 months now. Has to be brought to an end, and a very quick end, and a conclusive end. Not all this nonsense of going to court and having the courts determine and count your votes. Why can the ICJ or the CCJ count your votes? Judges are not there for that. You have GCOM for that. GCOM has to comply with its mandate, or withhold their salaries, or indict them for fraud, or for breach of governmental duty. There are laws in the Guyana that we use as prosecutors, and as a senior state counsel, I was able to take these cases successfully to court. Not of that massive scale of rigging. We never had that at the time that I was there. But as a leading prosecutor and a director of public prosecutions, we made sure that the law was not taken advantage of, and that society was not held to ransom as is being held in Guyana. And 1 million people, close to 1 million people, and the diaspora have to think about this and think about coronavirus and think about all these other problems, and about Venezuela coming to take 3/4 of Guyana. So it's not a simple issue. It's an issue that has ramifications, and it's an issue that needs to be addressed, and addressed now. And everyone has been talking about it. So we need to get it under control. So with that, I'm hoping to be on Kaichor News tomorrow on they asked me to come on. Let us see what happens if there's Kaichor News the Kaiju News radio program. You can join me there, or any other programs that you see coming up. But I thought I'd report to you. Stay safe. Observe the precautions. We have a week to go, 2 weeks, hopefully the most. We've been seeing some encouraging numbers in New York. We have been getting, and I want to compliment Governor Cuomo. He has really been on top of this and working very hard. The mayor, de Blasio, has also been trying his best. The President of the United States, to his credit, has also been eventually opening up and doing what he has to do. We need to work with these folks. They are the people in authority. We need to show them the respect to get to get our resources. And I'm hoping that this community that has always been forgotten, our communities of Richmond Hill, Little Guyana, Briarwood, Ozone Park, Jamaica, Southeast Queens, where we've always been forgotten and given the short thrift, where we're given the largest quota of tickets and sanitation tickets and Department of Building violations and taxed the heaviest and discriminated against, gets some resources coming into this community in terms of face masks and sanitizers and essential foodstuffs and some services to clean up the place after with sanitation. It's all over the place. And response time by ambulance. A lot of the ambulances take like an hour to come. And we need to put this situation under control, because we're actually having reports of people who have lost the pulse or who are being refused into the hospital. There may be a deeper symptomatic or systemic institutionalized problem here, where people who don't have insurance, or immigrants or people of color or minorities who don't have insurance or don't have the means or live in particular neighborhoods or do not have citizenship of the United States are treated unfairly, and that is wrong. The healthcare system must not discriminate. We already have enough suppressions and discriminations in this country, from top to bottom. And to further have the health system, which has taught us the lesson that there's been a visitation of an illness that has made us all equal and leveled the playing field, that none of us are above it, and that none of us are above its touch, which has taught us that we are all human beings, equal to all, that none of us are better, none of us are monarchs or emperors or whatever you may perceive yourself to be. In the hierarchy of human beings, that you are somehow better than that other person, your constituent, or your neighbor, or your friend, or your family, that you are somehow God's gift to man, and that he is lower than you. That has taught you the lesson, that the playing field is level. Take that as a lesson from God, but at the same time, try to work and help the people who are being marginalized and kicked out of hospitals. Let me repeat that. Those of us who think that we are privileged and we are better than anybody else, or that we come from privileged families or heritage, or whatever you may conceive yourself to be superior to anybody else, have been made equal with all of those perceived people that we consider less than us, and have been visited by an illness from God, which we do not accept, or which we do not agree with, nor do we have sympathy for, which unfortunately has become the reality in leveling the playing field and telling us the lesson that we badly need in our communities, that no one is better than anybody else. That the queen or the king or whosoever it may be, or elected representatives, or whosoever think that they are beyond the touch of fate or the Almighty, that you truly are not. You will die the same way. You'll be going the same way all of us go, whether it's 6 feet under, whether it's oblivion, wherever we'll be going. We are all equal. That being the case, an abject lesson to all of us, let us unite and take comfort and take a lesson from this, to move together as one human being, as one humanity, as one, with one purpose, and that is to help mankind, to help your fellow beings to a better life, just as you have helped your children and your family in getting a better life and in elevating into other circumstances. You know who you are. You know how you've used your powers to elevate your own. And now time has come for you to do equally and do the right thing by others. Because those who abuse the privilege of being in a position to help, you can easily be touched and vanquished, eradicated by the work of God, by the message of the Almighty. And you need to accept that and move your efforts into a more meaningful and equal one, a more humane platform, whereby you can help each others. Whether you're a sinner, whether who you are, whether you perceive yourself to be, it's the equalizer. We don't credit the equalizer. We don't sparse any comments to say it was a good or bad thing. It's a fate that was given to us. And out of that, we have to make the best of it. We have to make the best of the lessons of life. We have to play the cards that we are dealt, as we would say, and as we would tell others who are in a similar situation. But we have to play them fairly. So with that, stay safe. Sorry. Make sure that you keep yourselves healthy and be careful out there. Thank you very much. May God bless you. Thanks for listening. And I hope you'll come in on Kaiser Radio tomorrow at 2 o'clock. You can tune in on Facebook. Hopefully we'll be able to get another program there. And we'll be in touch. Thank you. And I hope John from Queens is watching. John from Queens, special shout out to you, my brother. You have been a pillar and a really a benefit, a great asset to this community. And thank you for sharing and for putting stuff up on YouTube that you consider worthy enough. Thank you, and may God bless you. And let's pray for each other, and let's help us to get to a better plane. And I'll say a prayer. I'm not a professional politician, nor am I a professional priest, but I do communicate with the Almighty. And you've got to be able to communicate with God without any third party. Learn this today, if it's the last thing you learn. Whenever you want to speak to the Almighty, you speak to Him directly. And I'm going to do that right now on your behalf, and I ask you to do so with me. Almighty and most loving God, we thank you for the lives. We thank you for another day. We thank you for helping us to come through from the darkness. We thank you for the inspiration. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the gift of happiness. We thank you for life itself and for your inspiration. We ask that we continue to have a life in this world and a life full of hope and charity. We ask you to continue to inspire us to help our fellow human beings, to help each other, to look out for each other, to be each brothers and sisters keeper. Lord, we ask for your forgiveness. We ask for your sustenance. We ask for your spirituality. We thank you for your inspiration. We thank you, God, because in you everything is possible. And without you, nothing is possible. And as we come before you, we ask you that you free us of this virus. You free us of the epidemics. You free us of the cruelty. You free us of the hate. You free us of the bitterness. You free us of mankind's sinful errors. Forgive us all, O God. Help us to go into a new journey, to go through a new beginning, to go through the portals of your world, and to come out a better humanity, a better society, a better community, a spiritually strong unity. Grant us your blessings, God, and forgive us our sins. Help all of us who have fallen by the wayside to get up and follow your lead as you shepherd us throughout these times. As we put our trust and faith in you, God, we ask you for your love, your sympathy, and your care. In Jesus' sweet and precious name we ask these things. Amen. And we thank you for all you've done for us. And for our bosom brothers and sisters, Inshallah, Ameen. And to her Hindu brothers and sisters, we also tell you Ram Ram, Sita Ram, Namaste, And may Lord Krishna grant us his blessings, and to our Jewish brothers, shalom, and to everyone else, whoever you may perceive as God, we thank you and we ask you to send your prayers and ask him for his help. Thank you, brothers and sisters, and God bless you. Good night.